Sports Map all night off and running. Overreaction Monday to week 13, which is not completed quite yet, but had the shocker of the season earlier today. Yes, a doubleheader on Monday Night Football. I'm Bill Schmidt, Andrew Carlson alongside. We're hanging out with you for the next 3 hours talking NFL. Want to get into the NFC West that got a couple of shakeups yesterday and also may have just be in the process of a shakeup coming up with the new Arizona 49ers that we're watching going up against the Buffalo Bills. New York Jets lose in only Jets fashion. NFC East is a little bit more competitive than maybe we had anticipated. Man, the Washington football team, how about it? Goes into Pittsburgh earlier on today and beats the undefeated Steelers. Larry Zonka and friends are smoking cigars, popping champagne as the only undefeated team of all time. But the Steelers looked mortal against the number 2 ranked defense in football. So are we undervaluing what this NFC East could look like? Because it's been a punchline all season long, right? For the last 13 weeks, we've done stand-up comedy on how bad the NFC East is. And now we see one team walk into Seattle and hand Russell Wilson, who was an MVP favorite a month ago, their loss at home as 10.5-point favorites. This game today, Steelers, I get it. You're coming off five days rest. We're going to hear from Mike Tomlin. You know that dude's never going to make excuses. But also give some legitimate props to what Alex Smith, who was at one point a third-string quarterback this year, and the Washington football team with 5 first-round picks on their defensive line. They put more pressure on the quarterback than a lot of other teams. And don't look now, the winner of the NFC East might be closer to 500 than anybody ever thought. Zach Rosenblatt's going to stop by in a half hour from New Jersey Advanced Media and talk about the New York Giants because they have a lot to gain winning that division. The team and their roommates at MetLife Stadium had very little to gain in winning yesterday. And they didn't. They found a way to lose in just epic fashion. Michael Duarte is going to talk NFC West with us and the LA Rams, who are now back up into first place and getting dangerous and dangerous. 1-800-224-2004. Hop aboard. Sports Map all night, off and running on a Monday. That's Jalen Hurts yesterday after the Philadelphia Eagles lose 30-16 last night in Green Bay. Thanks for hanging out, Sports Map all night. You can join us 1-800-224-2004 and on an Overreaction Monday. Overreact to your favorite team and what you saw yesterday. I might be overreacting here with the NFC East, and we'll get into it as the program goes on. We're going to talk a lot of NFC East here in the first hour of the program because I got to figure out what happens next in Philadelphia after Jalen Hurts replaces Carson Wentz yesterday through just 2.5 quarters. He threw for 75 yards in that time, was sacked 4 times. Offense was just anemic. There was nothing going right for Carson Wentz in that offense. And whether or not it's directly correlated to Jalen Hurts coming into the football game, you were able to see a difference in style of play. Tempo was definitely better with Hurts in, and you're down 23-3 when Hurts came in. So you're going to be throwing the football. You're going to be pushing the ball down the field. Trying 4th and 19s where Greg Ward finds himself open in the corner of the end zone. And the Packers start letting him back into it after a Jalen Reagor punt return of almost 80 yards back to the crib. But you're watching Philadelphia yesterday. You see Carson Wentz finally come out of the game and for an extended period of time because Doug Peterson never went back to him. In the game prior against Seattle, you saw Hurts come in. I think it was to start the second quarter, right, Andrew? It was to start the second quarter last Monday night. Hurts takes the first snap, and you think, okay, here we go, prime time. Now we're going to see what Jalen Hurts can do. We're going to see him in some extended action, and he throws one ball to Alshon Jeffrey, completes it, and then that was it. Then you didn't see him again until they ran some kind of wildcat formation for him. You got to give the guy an actual opportunity if indeed it's causing the type of rift in Philadelphia that we're hearing. Because all week we're answering questions about Doug Peterson. Is he going to be fired at the end of the year? I think it's ridiculous to even question that idea. This man won a Super Bowl 3 years ago, and you're ready to write him off and send him off packing. That's not what good organizations do. That's not what winning organizations do. You got to stick with somebody even through a front office mishap if Howie Roseman went rogue and decided to go with Jalen Hurts. Or frankly, if Howie Roseman and the ownership, right, because ownership is also the one that signs off on most of these decisions, if ownership decided to give Carson Wentz over $100 million, right? The coach isn't signing contracts. Doug Peterson can go off and tell you which quarterback he thinks is the right fit. He can tell you which guy he likes better. He can give you his opinion, but frankly, it's the front office's decision as to who gets paid and who doesn't. It's definitely Howie Roseman's call when he goes out and grabs a quarterback at the 53rd overall pick and then doesn't know when he's going to play. Right? Howie Roseman then said, go figure this out. Right? Here you go. Here's a piece. Doug, here's a new toy. Now go figure out how to make it work. Right? Just do what they use with Taysom Hill down in New Orleans. Well, that's different because this guy came in when he was 28 years old. Right? You can put him on punt team. He's just happy to be in the league. He's just happy to get a job. Jalen Hurts was going to have a job. You knew Jalen Hurts was going to get into the league and he was going to have an opportunity. So now you put him in this spot. You give him that opportunity. You pick him in the second round, knowing full well what comes with that. Now they're 3-8-1, and you actually have to make a decision. What are you going to do? Because now you got 4 games left in a division that you're still somewhat in, right? You could win out, have a chance. Eagles aren't winning out, man. There's just no way. They're going to be lucky to win another game. They have New Orleans, Arizona, Dallas, and Washington. Definitely not winning the Washington game after what I watched today. That's week 17. That's going to be for the division probably for Washington. If they have any chance of winning the division there. They're tied up with New York, and Zach Rosenblatt's going to stop by. You follow him at Zach Blatt on Twitter in about 20 minutes from right now and talk about that Giants team. They just went on the road and beat Seattle. Philly's not doing that. They couldn't figure out how to score on Seattle in the first 52 minutes of the game last week. So whether or not the season is a complete failure, if you want to clean house, if you want to make Doug Peterson the scapegoat, then by all means. We're going to talk in the second hour of the program tonight, in about 45 minutes or so, about teams and coaches yesterday that probably lost jobs. Doug Peterson's going to have a job, whether it's with Philadelphia or somewhere else. He's going to have a job, and he deserves to have a job. But now what happens next in Philadelphia? Because whether or not the relationship with the ownership group is, you can't replace it. You can't rebuild. It's going to be done at this point. They severed ties. No one's even talking to each other. All this stuff that we're hearing in the media, there's got to be some kind of fact to it, right? Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport don't just report things and spout it off as fact if they don't believe something. Mike Florio is as in tune with the NFL as anybody. He doesn't go off and say that Jeffrey Lurie's not going to practices because he doesn't want to see Doug Peterson. He doesn't agree with what Doug Peterson's got going on. Those guys are in tune guys. Carson Wentz, from everything we can watch on TV, what we can watch in Game Pass when they put out the All-22 and we all act like we're good coaches and have a whiteboard inside, you can see the different diagrams. Just listen to this guy and tell me that he's not about done. Disappointed, to say the least, Carson Wentz was when he was benched yesterday in the third quarter.
At the end of the day, we lost. As a team, we lost, and that's what I think, for me, I'm most frustrated about. I don't like where we're at this season record-wise, and I know I can play better, and we can all be better going forward. But, we got to clean some things up.
Yeah, Carson, I don't think you're going to be the guy to clean it up, man. No. Not even completing 58% of his passes after yesterday's debacle that he had. He had 12 games. Now you're going to go give somebody else a chance. And for Jalen Hurts to go in yesterday cold and play the way he did, I thought he looked good. He threw the ball with confidence. Running the football has never been an issue for Jalen Hurts. Making a good decision has never been an issue when you watch Jalen Hurts, right? It's, can he do it consistently enough throwing the ball downfield? Push the ball downfield and make plays in the pass game. That's why Tua ended up taking his job at Alabama, was because you saw Tua be a little bit more of a game manager, limit risks, and throw the ball down the field. Jalen was a technician when it came to running the football, absolutely. But what are you going to do in the pass game? Forced into throwing yesterday, Jalen looked pretty good. Now, was Carson Wentz worried about being benched, or should he have been worried about being benched going into the game? That's another story, and he answers that yesterday after the game as well.
I never like to think like that. Obviously there's been a lot of chatter. I've had to, field a lot of questions, over the last handful of weeks, but I don't let my mind go there at the end of the day. I'm a competitor, and when I'm out on that field, whether it's practice or a walkthrough or a game, I'm going to leave it all on the field and do everything I can. And today, that's what I did. I don't think I played my best, but I did everything I could. And at the end of the day, I came out of the game, and that's not my call.
Yeah, no, you definitely didn't play your best. That's not up for debate. We all saw that. But we've seen everybody play poorly for the Philadelphia Eagles this year, especially yesterday. Man, their offense gets aided, and the score looks a lot closer after Rager takes the punt backs, whatever it was, 78, 79 yards for a touchdown. The stats look different. The game looks closer than it was. It was a blowout in the entire second half. And, credit to the Packer pass rush. They got home, sacked Wentz 4 times, sacked Hurts 3 times. When you're dropping back and you're up down 20, you know what's happening. You know that you're going to be able to tee off. So it's a difficult situation to read. So Doug Peterson, now you've seen these guys for 13 weeks preseason, not a part of this 2020 campaign that we've all been privy to. So Jalen Hurts comes in. The only game experience he's had is running wildcat stuff, not really getting into a flow of an offense. You got to see him yesterday. You've seen what Carson Wentz has been able to do for you, in which is be statistically the worst quarterback in football for the first 11 and a half games. Who starts next week? Doug Peterson, as you go off and take on oh, by the way, the best team in the NFC in the New Orleans Saints.
You guys are listening. You got to let me get through this game. You just heard me say we needed a spark in this game to try to get some things going. I've got to get through injuries. I got to get through the tape. But there's a lot of things that I'm gonna consider and evaluate before before anything's decided. But look, opportunity arose, and like I said, we just needed that opportunity to get us back in a football game today, and we came up short.
Yeah, sounds like it's going to be Jalen Hurts to me. Out of that right there, I'm not going to bury anybody. Man, let me talk to the guys personally too. Let me sit in the meeting room and digest this for a little while. But I listened to that. I saw what I saw yesterday with my own two eyes, watched the game, sun up to sun, first play to last. That's a totally different football team than they have been in years past. And I don't think they're that much better, markedly better right away with Jalen Hurts. But it can't hurt for what you got with Carson Wentz going out. Play in and play out. Making bad decisions. Not tucking the ball under when he's got an opportunity to. Then 4.5 seconds later, trying to tuck it under and run. It's just not working. And at some point, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. You're not getting a different result with Carson Wentz, a quarterback right now. And that NFC East is going to start moving past you. It's going to start going in a different direction. The Washington football team just pulled off one of the more improbable upsets of the 2020 season about an hour and a half ago. And we're going to hear from Mike Tomlin, Ron Rivera, and Chase Young was hilarious after this game. Also, Zach Rosenblatt's going to stop by and talk about the Giants. Those two teams are atop the NFC East and both looking this week better than I think anybody in football anticipated they would so far with the performances that we saw by New York yesterday in Seattle, Washington earlier today. Go over to Pittsburgh next, right here on Sports Map All Night. I'm Bill Schmidt hanging out with you on Sports Map Radio.
Wake up there. We are joined by legend.
Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Bill Schmidt.
Inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios is where we broadcast to you live from each and every night here on Sports Map Radio, the ever-expanding Sports Map all-night radio network, as we talk sports with fans across the country. We talk NFL with fans across the country at 1-800-224-2004. Tell us something good, though. You can go off and complain and talk about how your head coach is an idiot and he deserves to be fired. And we'll do a lot more of that coming up in the next hour of the program, which I don't like doing. I don't like being the dude that says this guy needs to be out. Calling for people's job, not really my forte, not really something that I like doing all that much. But yesterday, I think there were a couple of coaches in the NFL that clearly lost their jobs. And it's going to be tough sledding coming back for a few different folks. One guy that did a great deal for his team and his job security was Ron Rivera. He's not in question for what he's had to deal with this year. We're going to hear from Ron, as well as their number 1 overall pick this year, number 2 overall in the draft, Chase Young, in just a second. But we're inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Are your wiper blades chattering, skipping, or squeaking? Don't compromise the visibility with streaks or smearing on your windows. When it's time to replace your wiper blades, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and see their selection. The professional parts people will help you find just the right wiper blades for your vehicle. And O'Reilly Auto Parts will install your wiper blades free of charge. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. As the Washington football team pulled off the upset 23-17 just a couple of hours ago in Pittsburgh, knocked the Steelers from the ranks of the unbeaten. Last week, we had a lot of fun talking and playing all sorts of audio from Mike Tomlin. We do a lot of that on this show. We like to give you the athlete, give you the coaches, and then cut through some of the stuff, right? Cut through some of the minutia, lack of a better term, the crap that you hear from NFL players and coaches, right? Mike Tomlin doesn't give you any of that. Mike Tomlin tells you exactly how he feels and then relays the exact same message to his football team. So last week, he was not happy with the way they beat the Baltimore Ravens at home in that Wednesday matinee. Today, they play a Monday matinee, and Mike Tomlin similarly frustrated, obviously, after the result. However, almost a little excited about what is to come, Mike Tomlin, in the only football guy fashion you can, tells everybody and spins a loss and the first loss of the season as a positive after his Pittsburgh Steelers lose to the Washington football team just a couple hours ago.
I'm excited about facing the adversity of losing with this group, man, and smiling in the face of it and preparing and getting ready for our next challenge. And so different points along the journey, you get a chance to learn about yourself, who you are, what you're made of, individually and collectively. And it takes the journey to reveal that. And so, we're faced with a loss now, so we'll get an opportunity to smile in the face of it.
Smile in the face of it. That's a new trademark. That's got to be on a t-shirt. Smile in the face of adversity. If that's not going to be on a poster somewhere in the Pittsburgh Steelers offices, I don't know how you're not getting a marketing team on that right now. But this game had a lot of implications playoff-wise. Had a ton. You look at Washington, now they're tied up once again, just a tiebreaker behind New York. And we'll talk to Zach Rosenblatt of New Jersey Advanced Media coming up here in about 8 minutes as to the Giants and the team that leads that division. But you're seeing Washington with the firepower they have on the defensive front and just being in awe of Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, who I loved coming out of Alabama. Montez Sweat, good for that young man. You kidding me? It was supposed to be what, Andrew? He was on draft charts a couple of years ago, or last year. He was coming out, I saw 8th, 9th pick in the draft. He fell all the way through the bottom of the first round, and Washington goes back to get him because he had what, like a heart condition come combine time that everybody was concerned about. And now he's on one of the best defensive fronts in football. Whatever their team and their organization is sitting through, Ron Rivera has done one of the best jobs any coach has done maybe in the history of the National Football League. In his first season with a team, after being fired mid-year last year, taking a team to a Super Bowl, 4 years later is fired with 4 games to go. Comes in to an organization that has been a perennial loser and a laughingstock in the last few years. Changes the quarterback after 2 or 3 games. That quarterback that he goes to dislocates an ankle, has to go to a quarterback that hadn't played a game in almost a year and a half, was fighting for his life 2 years ago in Alex Smith, and just steadies the ship. Oh, by the way, his team now has no nickname because they finally give in to the clamoring and the political climate as advertisers are dumping the organization. And then the Washington Post is writing exposés on the entire organization and the owner. It is an absolute mess. And just the cherry on top of the crap Sunday that Ron Rivera has had to deal with there in Washington, the man defeats cancer and then talks about his football team after they knocked the Steelers from the ranks of the unbeaten. Fired up, excited, absolutely so. And Chase Young, one of the most impressive players that I've seen from this draft class, physically imposing, dominant. He has to be a leader on this football team for this type of belief and this type of passion about his team and where he wants this organization to go. Not going to be anybody's underdog. Not going to kowtow and bow down to anybody else. The Washington football team is kind of here to stay at this point. I don't know that they're going to be a dominant force across football, right? I don't know that they're even going to make the playoffs. But look at that NFC East, and you got 2 teams at the top that are pretty impressive. Washington also loses Antonio Gibson in the first drive of this game. Didn't matter. Did not matter. J.D. McKissick comes in, catches 10 passes for 70 yards. Logan Thomas is a former quarterback at Virginia Tech. Get him the rock. He's fine. Catches 9 balls, scores a touchdown. And Alex Smith was dropping some dime balls, man. That's for sure. He was letting it ride. They were fired up. They were ready to go. And Chase Young said they are not going to be anybody's underdog. Never have been, never will be.
So just something that we talked about, man. It was going into the game. Obviously, they had us as an underdog. And, I never been an underdog, and I never will be. So I feel like that's really what we just try to prove today. That we really not underdogs, but when we play together, and we play with passion, then I feel like we can be the best, one of the best out here.
That was Chase Young on the football team's post-game show that they did with London Fletcher, former Washington football player. He was fired up. Every football fan in Washington should be excited. And the NFC East, looking better than before. Zach Rosenblatt talks about now the first-place Giants and their upset win in Seattle next with us right here on Sports Map All Night. You're listening to Sports Map Radio. Back in 3 minutes right after this. Sports Map all night. I'm Bill Schmid. Hour number 1, almost in the books. Going to still have a lot more good stuff coming up for you. Within 40 minutes from right now, we're going to talk to Michael Duarte, one of my favorite guys to talk to, covering the Rams as well as the Lakers and Dodgers for NBC LA. He comes up in 40 minutes from right now, 40 past the hour. And you look at where the Rams sit now in the NFC West. We're watching the Bills take down the San Francisco 49ers, who are now the Arizona 49ers, for the next 5 weeks. And Andrew, we always joke about it, that what is the worst kind of radio you can do, talking about your fantasy team, because no one could care less. Kyle Shanahan must hate me. He must just have something against whatever I'm trying to do. I got a little wager on this fantasy game that you got to take 4 shots from a straw. Is that something that you think people in Houston would be doing, or is that a Wisconsin thing?
Nah, that seems like a Wisconsin thing. You guys are the drinkers up there.
Yeah, so just give the ball to Raheem Mostert, for crying out loud, on the goal line one time. They tried it a couple of different times. What coaches may have lost their jobs? We'll get into that next. Sports Map all night. Keep it right here.
Bill Schmidt.
Sports Map All Night is the program. We're broadcasting you live inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts studios. Thanks for hanging out as we react and overreact, as many people like to do, on a Monday right after the NFL season, or right after week 13 in the NFL, I should say. It's a great day to be great, is what a lot of coaches would like to say. And that's a great way to live your life. Just a great day to be great, and a great day to be listening to us here on Sports Map All Night. It would be a great day for Raheem Mostert to get a couple of touches, but hey, man, we can't. Beggars can't be choosers. That's the easiest way to say it. We're going to hear what exactly went down in New York, because the New York Jets just found another way to lose, as well as Grandpa Brent's going to give you exactly how it went down. Some money quotes here on the other side, as there's so many coaches in the NFL that are able to win games and win enough games to keep their jobs. There's also certain times in certain games where you can feel a coach almost lose a job. There were a couple of cases of that, I think, yesterday that you saw, and a couple of teams that I don't know if exactly you can rebound from some of the losses that we saw yesterday. So we're going to get into that. Going to bring you those conversations here coming up on the other side. Michael Duarte is going to stop by from NBC LA, covers the LA Rams, Lakers, and Dodgers. Specifically, what did the Los Angeles Rams do yesterday and show again yesterday in a 38-28 win over Kyler and the Cards? A defense that can be so opportunistic. They finally unleash Cam Akers, and he comes up a little bit dinged up, a little bit of a shoulder as he came out of yesterday. But Jared Goff, don't wreck the game, and your team's going to win a lot of games. They get a pick 6 yesterday. They forced Kyler to throw a pick yesterday. Their defense can win you games if you allow them to, and you don't throw yourself out of it. That's going to be the biggest problem for the LA Rams. However, now they go back to the top of the NFC West after whatever that ended up being in Seattle with the Giants upsetting the Seahawks yesterday. How confident is Michael Duarte that the Rams can win that division? We talked to him in 40 minutes. What coaches lost their jobs yesterday? And if you think we missed one, 1-800-224-2004. Come hang out at Sports Map All Night on Sports Map Radio.
Bill Schmidt.
The show is Sports Map all night. We're hanging out with you on Sports Map Radio. I'm Bill Schmidt. My guy Andrew Carlson hanging out as well inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts studios. What a win. What a game. And one heck of a finish in New York. We'll talk about the Jets and Raiders coming up here in about 15 minutes from right now. Michael Duarte stops by from NBC LA within the next half hour, as well as you can join us 1-800-224-2004. Buffalo putting the final finishing touches on a 34-17 win. They're inside the final minute. Nick Mullins trying to throw a garbage time touchdown over to Brandon Ayuk, falls incomplete. We'll see how this game wraps up with 50 seconds to go. But we just watched Washington go on the road and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers and end their unbeaten season. Larry Zonka was all fired up. He posted, I saw a video earlier today about cheersing, lighting a cigar to the Steelers getting knocked from the ranks of the unbeaten. Good feeling, good story, good vibes for all the folks that are Miami Dolphin fans. A different tone you can only imagine across the NFC East, right? Because now it's a little bit different scenario. I still think it would be laughable if Doug Peterson gets fired in Philadelphia. That will just not make any sense to me whatsoever. You're struggling. Sure. Your team needs a little bit of a spark. I get that. I just don't think firing the coach at this point in the season does that. I don't really know. And after the guy goes 3 years ago, takes you to a Super Bowl, do winning organizations fire coaches after that? It just doesn't feel right. Doesn't make sense. However, he might be on the outs. But yesterday, there were a couple of teams that may have gotten their coaches their walking papers. And Andrew, you and I have now been doing this show for about 3-4 months. You know how much I love Anthony Lynn. I think he is a phenomenal first-class guy. Played in the league, coaches in the league. He knows defense, knows offense. He used to play running back. He worked a lot as a defensive assistant in the NFL. And yesterday, right now he's in a no-win situation. Everybody's been hurt since he's been with the Chargers the last year and a half. Derwin James was their best player defensively. He's missed almost a year and a half. Joey Bosa misses games with concussions, and he's been in and out of the lineup. Austin Eckler, they got him back last week. He had been out since week 2. And oh, by the way, they're starting a rookie quarterback who looks good. Don't get me wrong, right? Justin Herbert can ball. I get that. He's still a rookie quarterback, guys. And at this point, there's only so much that you're going to be able to get out of week in and week out. A guy that's making his firsts in the National Football League. They get drummed by the New England Patriots yesterday, right? Have a field goal blocked, return for a touchdown, get a punt return taken back for a touchdown, another one taken back like 65 yards, score quickly. Cam Newton runs into, and the Chargers get thumped 45-0. It was embarrassing. They gave up 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. All of these things, though, going through the mind of Anthony Lynn, and this is why I love this dude, and I know that whether it's a head coaching job or a coordinator position, Anthony Lynn is going to land on his feet very soon because of answers like this after his team gets beat 45-0 at home.
That was one of the worst football games I've ever been a part of in my 30 years in the National Football League as a player and a coach. It's not acceptable, and it's not indicative of the men in the locker room. Watch closely. Now, one guy on that field quit. This team will regroup. They will battle, and we will bounce back. And we will make sure. I know I would personally make sure that would never happen again. That was unacceptable and embarrassing.
And flat out embarrassing.
I'll do the best I can to answer your questions, but I'm telling you right now, I don't have a lot to say.
That's my favorite there at the end, dude. He tries to be as nice and polite as he can. Hey, listen, I'm going to do whatever I can to answer these questions, but I don't have much to say, so fire him away if you got something. And then earlier today, Anthony Lynn essentially gets the kiss of death from the higher-ups and say, well, Anthony Lynn's not going to get fired. We're going to keep going with him for the rest of the season. The likelihood of Anthony Lynn, we're not really sure. Listen, he's going to be gone. They're not going to change him right now. The organization has a tremendous amount of respect for Anthony Lynn. and they're going to evaluate it at the end of the year, as classy organizations do, which is the right decision. There's no reason to fire a coach midseason. It doesn't make your team any better. It doesn't make the organization look any better. If it makes a couple of fans that say, you know what, really the problem is with this team, it's that ownership group, right? Those guys, there's always going to be fans like that want everybody fired after each and every game, after every embarrassing loss. You got to make a move. Anthony Lynn gets out at the end of the year. You do right by him. You do right by the rest of the league. You show a guy some class on the way out. Hell, this dude took you to the divisional round of the playoffs 2 years ago and had them playing as well as just about anybody. It gets caught in a transition. It's a sticky situation. I think the bigger question that Los Angeles is going to have to answer, and Dean Spanos, who as an owner, I don't believe that he makes the right decision at all, is how do you balance the right decision on who to make as your next head coach? And how do you make sure that it's not too splashy to satisfy the rest of the fan base or the fan base that you're trying to grow, and making sure that it's the right, coaching decision, right? If it's Robert Saleh from the 49ers, well-known dude, don't get me wrong, but that's not the sexy move that usually plays in Los Angeles. You're looking for a big splash move in LA. You're looking for somebody that's as known as possible. Try to sell that stadium once you can get people in there. Sell a fan base that already is leaning towards the Rams because they're going to the playoffs. Anthony Lynn's going to be out. Yesterday was just the final nail in the coffin, but good decision by the Chargers to not do it midseason. That's kind of classless in my opinion. Doug Marrone, right, in Jacksonville. They've fought every single game, and you cannot tell me in the last 11 that they've lost, right? The Jags started the season 1-0, beat Indianapolis at home, and then they've lost 11 straight. They're not good. They're not. They started Mike Glennon at quarterback. Right? That tells you all you need to know. However, they fire the GM last week. Doug Marrone is just, at least at this point, he's a suit, right? He's a guy on the sideline that is as cooked as possible. You can stick a fork in him, he's done. But his team battles into overtime against the Minnesota Vikings, who have everything to play for. They're right in the thick of the playoffs, Chase. And now Doug Marrone has to answer questions about being fired. And you're in a position to come on out and blame everybody else. Doug Marrone just lets you know that there's human beings in this room, right? And it's difficult. I hope he gets a gig somewhere else. He's a classic football guy. Doug Marrone after the game, knowing that his job is done, not necessarily because his Jags lost to the Vikings, finding new ways to lose. He was pretty much cooked last week. Then you go to Chicago. And one of the funniest plays, something that's always comical to me, is when you want to call out players at every juncture of being a fan, right? You always want to say, this guy needs to be held accountable. Or somebody's got to go in there and light a fire under one of those guys. So Matt Nagy tried that last week, and it failed miserably. His team was up 10 points most of the game. Loses to Darrell Bevel, who's the interim head coach in Detroit already. They canned the GM and the head coach last week. So Detroit goes on the road, comes back from 10 down. Matthew Stafford goes 96 in about 2.5 minutes. And then Montgomery coughs up the ball inside the 10-yard line, and the Bears lose at home in epic fashion. It was great. But now Matt Nagy, last week, played the pissed-off coach role. So now what kind of cluster can you come back into after already using that card and having a game, as Matt Nagy says, was one of the most painful, stinging losses he's ever been a part of?
This one, just the way it ended. I mean, we've been on the other end of so many of these, and now to have a lead like this and lose this way, it stings. It hurt. They all sting. They all hurt. And I think you could feel the excitement on the sideline for our guys to come out and have that energy and be able to put points up on the board. I thought our guys we did that at on the offensive side of the ball. I felt like we were getting first downs and we were moving the sticks, and then we were getting touchdowns, and so that part was good. And it's we knew there's going to be games like this where we got to score points, but it's certainly one that hurts, and that's stating the obvious.
And you know it's bad when they go and ask the quarterback that you inherited and that you were supposed to come in and fix, who was the number 2 overall pick. Just 3 years later, he's answering questions about your job security. Mitch Trubisky, who was put back into the starting role, talks about after the game Matt Nagy's job security or the lack thereof.
I'm taking it one day at a time. That's all we're promised. And my job is to continue to make sure this team is sticking together, make sure these leaders are sticking together, and we'll just continue to uplift our teammates and the people in our building. We're in a tough situation. Obviously, we don't want to be in this situation, but I don't believe negativity or holding your head down is going to help us get out of this. So you got to believe that we're going to turn around. I think continue to stay positive and just continue to work harder. So I hope it's turning around. So that's what I'm focused on, and just taking it one day at a time.
There's already been coaching moves in the NFL, right? We just mentioned that Matt Patricia was fired. He's gone. Dan Quinn was relieved of his duties in Atlanta, along with Thomas Dimitroff. He's gone. On the AFC side, they've already fired Bill O'Brien. You're already seeing Dave Caldwell get fired with the GM spot in Jacksonville. Doug Marrone's all but done. And there's going to be, as normally, about 25% of the coaches in the NFL turnover each year. About 7 or 8 jobs open up. Now, which of those jobs are good jobs? To each his own, and people decide for that on their own. Those guys right now are about as done as you can be. Bears have now lost 6 straight games, and it's all but a foregone conclusion, listening to Chicago sports radio earlier on today, that they're just going to clean house. But think about it this way. And Andrew, before we take a quick break, and we're going to get into whatever that miraculous win by the Raiders was yesterday. But think about it this way. If you are the Chicago Bears organization, it's a family business. Virginia McCaskey, 90-something years old, still owns the team, right? And George McCaskey is her son, who's the acting president, essentially, of the organization, chairman of the board. He's now fired their GM at one point, who was Jerry Angelo, then brought in Phil Emery, who hired Mark Trestman. That was an absolute train wreck. Then fires both of those two, brings in Ryan Pace, who hired John Fox. That didn't work. Who then hired Matt Nagy. They're both going to get fired. How would you walk up to, and how does a parent look at their kid and say, as the son is walking up saying, "So, Mom, I'm sorry, I messed up again. But I really know that these next 2 guys that we're going to hire are going to be the right choice." How do they say no? Like, he's kind of got carte blanche to do whatever he wants and do whatever he thinks is going to work, even though pretty much everybody watching it knows it's been a train wreck in Chicago. And what kind of faith do you have? But what does a parent say to a kid? And, you know what, George, sit down. You're fired. I mean, like, there's only so much that you can do in that situation. It's one of the weirdest dichotomies in the National Football League, one of the strangest structures in the league. And it's going to get tested again because Matt Nagy is cooked after they lose that one yesterday to the Detroit Lions. And they Lionsed all over the place. We're back after this. Did the New York Jets fire the wrong guy? Or I'll tell you exactly how I would write the script if WWE was the NFL next. Michael Duarte from NBC LA in 15 minutes on Sports Map All Night.
Jackpot, baby! Vegas touchdown! Vegas touchdown! Jackpot!
That is Brent Musburger, Grandpa Brent. Oh my goodness, is it great hearing his voice calling NFL football and calling Las Vegas Raider football. Exactly how it was meant to be. Because you can tell that either Grandpa Brent, Andrew, either had money on, he had to have the Raiders on the money line. Like 100%, he had the Raiders on the money line. He wasn't worried about it at all. Then steamrolls his way into giving Henry Ruggs. I was listening to the call yesterday because I got the NFL Game Pass last weekend during their Black Friday whatever sale. It was like $25. So everybody usually uses it for the cut-ups and stuff like that. I'm a radio nerd. I love broadcasting. You and I were joking around. I was playing some of my greatest play-by-play hits last week during one of the shows. So I love radio play-by-play. And you get every single game, every call. So money. I'm sold. So I'm listening to Brent Musburger call the final stretch of that game yesterday. He just goes into a devastated mode after the end of that game, or after the the Raiders, fail inside Jets 10-yard line, throws the ball to Aguilar. It's short, turn the ball over. He's just doing the math in his head. He's like, we're going to get the ball with about 24 seconds to go. And he's trying to figure it out in his mind of how they're going to win this game still. And then Greg Williams jets all over himself and decides to run cover 0 on the final 2 plays of the game from the 50-yard line. And John Gruden, bless his soul, bless his heart, Chucky finds any reason to be positive and cover up for a just horrendous coaching decision. Listen to John Gruden try to explain why Greg Williams went cover 0 and why it made any sort of sense yesterday on the final 2 plays of the game for the New York Jets.
You know, they lost to New England on Monday Night Football. They didn't blitz, and Cam Newton made a throw, and I'm sure they got criticized for no pass rush. And then you blitz and you get beat over the top. You know, we're in this business together as coaches. We're never going to be right when we lose. But I thought the Jets really showed a lot of character. They ran the ball. They threw the ball. They came from behind. They did everything they could to win the game. I was really impressed with Rodney Hudson, our offensive line. We picked up some nasty blitzes throughout this game.
And John Gruden, right, just goes to the defense. That's a fireable offense, and it was today. They relieved Greg Williams of his duties. But Andrew, tell me this. If Vince McMahon was storylining the NFL, this is how this would go. Adam Gase now tomorrow gets an extension, 3-year extension to be the head coach of the New York Jets because Adam Gase was being undermined to the team by Greg Williams, and Joe Douglas and the brass there in New York believes in Adam Gase without that guy and that distraction on the other side of Greg Williams telling players not to do what Adam Gase has been saying, undermining him his entire time, and they give him a fresh start and they give him Trevor Lawrence next year. That is how the storyline should go. I mean, hey, I'd be here for it. I'd laugh. I would think it would be hilarious. You know what? It's not going to happen, but it would be tremendous theater if they keep Adam Gase somehow. And it would be like the most Jets thing that you could do at this point. But Greg Williams is fired because of the decision, which was a horrible one. It was the first time some funky stat came out that it was the only time since like 2005 that any team had 0 blitzed during a final game-ending play. It seemed like a made-up story, made-up stat. Whatever it ended up being. They decide to do a Greg Williams blitz. He blitzes. He brings pressure. You knew that when you hired him, right? But now Derek Carr and the Raiders are the real story here. Despite the Jets possibly having a chance to win their first game, I'm looking at Vegas because they're a team that could actually do something, and you're going to watch come playoff time, possibly. But this was a game last year. They lost 34-3 to the New York Jets. Derek Carr believing he's got a different football team, definitely has a different tight end and says he doesn't care how they get it done. Just get me to January football in playoff time in Vegas.
I think so. I mean, I think we're ready. Time will tell. If we can execute and do it at a high level. We got some really good football teams that are playing for something just like we are, that are about to come to our place and try and take it from us. And so, if we want to go where we want to go and we want to do the things that we want to do, we got to win football games. And everyone knows what's at stake. Everyone knows the opportunities that we have, and that's why I'm super pumped about this. Trust me, I lost my voice, yelling down there at how excited I was. But at the same time, my preparation for the next game has already begun. I'm already getting ready for the next one because, like I said, the job's not finished. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that we get back to the playoffs. I want to play in the playoffs. Last time I broke my ankle, I didn't get to play. I want a chance. I want that opportunity. So I know our other guys do too. Some of our veterans and some of our young guys, some of the guys we signed in free agency, they came here to go to the playoffs. They didn't come here just to mess around. So we got to do. We got to get healthy. We got to get guys back on the practice field. And if we can do that, we can make a little run at this thing.
And Derek Carr's team has a legitimate chance, and they'll essentially play for their playoff spot next week when they take on the Indianapolis Colts. Michael Duarte stops by from NBC LA talking Rams football with us next on Sports Map All Night. 13 in the NFL tomorrow with the Ravens and Cowboys. But to talk about the NFC West, that is the best division in football, and the San Francisco 49ers, thankfully, for any team that's in the NFC that is going to the playoffs, you should be thankful the San Francisco 49ers are not going to be in there. They lose tonight to the Buffalo Bills. To talk about the first place team in that division, Michael Duarte is here from NBC LA on the Progressive Guest Hotline. Progressive, making it easy. Bundle your home and car insurance. Get your quote online at progressive.com today. Michael, thanks for stopping by, man, hanging out with us again. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Happy holidays to you. All the pleasantries as always. That Rams team, how legit are they after that win against Kyler and the Cards yesterday?
Yeah, thanks, Bill, for having me on. I mean, the Rams have always been legit, but they will not be in that upper echelon as far as like an elite team or one that we think is a Super Bowl contender until they can show what they did against the Cardinals consistently week in and week out. There are games where Jared Goff performs well, plays well, and the team can get wins. Like they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a couple weeks ago. They beat the Cardinals last week. And then they have games where Jared Goff can cost his team a game, as we saw at home against the San Francisco 49ers the week prior. So are they legit? If they can keep this up, and most importantly, consistency at the quarterback position with Jared Goff, then we'll see. But at least we know that they're now in the driver's seat and in control of their own destiny moving forward.
What are the feelings and sentiment around Goff? Because you look over in Philadelphia and it's an absolute dumpster fire. Goff can throw you out of a game. Absolutely. He can wreck a game. He's in that Cousins mold to me where he can throw you out of a game. You saw that in Miami. However, he's so competent in that offense, and you just need somebody to not mess it up. He was taking one pick ahead of Wentz. They're always going to be tied together. One seems to be losing his job. The other got questioned by his head coach last week. But just mentally and in that position, it seems like Goff is just a little bit ahead of where Wentz is at, and it's the reason why his team is going to the playoffs, and the other one's going to be drafted in the top 10.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, Bill, if this Goff-Wentz comparison starts to kind of go by the wayside now moving forward. It is clear that Goff is ahead of Carson Wentz, at least in their maturation, their growth. I think this is their fourth season in the NFL for each of them. Now, with that said, to go back to the original question is kind of what is the look of Goff. You know, there's been a lot of commentary since Sean McVay took over as the Los Angeles Rams head coach in 2017 that Jared Goff is a system quarterback, and that's kind of what he will always be. But you never know. I don't necessarily agree with that. And so what we see from Goff is that when he is under pressure, and that happens a lot with teams that blitz and with teams that like to play one-on-one. If you play a zone in the secondary against him, he can tend to pick you apart and find his receivers in space. When you play man-to-man and put pressure on him, blitz him, get him under pressure, that's when Goff starts to wilt. And even though the San Francisco 49ers have been banged up, they still have that elite defensive front line. And they were able to show what they can do when they put pressure on Goff. And what Goff does is he tends to panic.
Yeah.
And if you get some of those defensive linemen to fall back a little bit, you'll be lucky and you'll find a ball land right in your hands because Goff will tend to throw it without necessarily looking at who's in the area. And so that's what we see with Goff. I think he's ranked in the lower tier in the NFL as far as quarterbacks when they're under pressure, when they're hurried, as far as making mistakes in his quarterback rating. When he does have time, as we can see, he can roll out, he can do lots of things. So what I think for Sean McVay moving forward, because I think they both deserve the blame when you do see those Goff games where he struggles, is that you need to play to your quarterback strengths. You need to get Jared out in space. You need to get him rolling out. He seems to be good in those positions. As we saw when he tried to run and scramble on his own against the San Francisco 49ers, he fumbled the ball. He's able to take care of the ball, and you play to Jared Goff's strengths, you're going to see him exceed in that system. And that's what they need moving forward, and they're going to need consistency more than anything.
That's a great point because there's so many different times that it appears we always want to give Sean McVay heaps of credit when things go right, and then when things go wrong, it's always the quarterback's fault, right? He's a wonder child, and he's always been loved by the media, and understandably so, man. They win games, and they've gone to a Super Bowl. He's the youngest coach to do so. However, when things do go wrong and go south, you do also have to look over at the quarterback or the coach. I like that you put it that way, that it's not only success that Jared Goff and deserves, and also a little bit of criticism has to go towards the head coach at certain points too.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, though, because first and foremost, I can give you a great example from Sunday's game against the Cardinals with Sean McVay and his play calling specifically. They went for it because they're not necessarily confident in Matt Gay, their field goal kicker, who's like their third kicker this season to date. And so they went for it on fourth down, missed it. Then later in that, I think it was the second quarter, they had first and goal from like 2 or 3 yard line. They ran the ball to Cam Akers, 4 straight plays, went for it on fourth and goal, and got stopped and turned the ball over on downs. And I'm looking at this saying, you march down the field with, Goff rolling out, finding Robert Woods, finding Cooper Kupp, even finding guys like Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee, his tight ends, who they knew would be a factor in that game against the Cardinals defense. Eventually they did get a touchdown to Higbee, but he didn't use him. He ran the ball 4 straight possessions and they turned it over on down. That's not Jared Goff's fault. He's doing what the play call was in. And for Sean McVay, a guy we give so much credit to for his innovative offense, that seemed very stale and stagnant and boring to me when they probably, should have not run the same play 4 straight times in the red zone like that and thrown a little different look at the Cardinals and found the end zone. And I've seen that red zone efficiency for the Rams has been a huge problem this season. They are extremely inconsistent in the red zone this year. And if you're going to be, like I said, one of those elite teams, one that's going to be considered an NFC Super Bowl contender, you need to be consistent in that red zone. You need to be efficient, and you need to be consistent with Jared Goff in that offense. I think I saw a stat going into Sunday's game against the Cardinals. The Rams hadn't scored over 30 points in 6 straight games, which for Sean McVay's first 2 years, that was his forte. And they finally broke that streak yesterday, but that was the longest streak of Sean McVay's career. And to me, that is not necessarily because the offense is struggling. That is because they're not getting 6 points on the board when they're down in the red zone instead of putting up 3 or something like that. And so that's going to be the factor moving forward here.
Writes and reports for NBC LA covering the Rams, Lakers, and Dodgers. Talking Rams with Michael Duarte here on Sports Map all night. Quote, buy and save on home insurance with Progressive's new Home Quote Explorer, only at Progressive.com. Yesterday, Jalen Ramsey is still, if not the best corner in the league, man. He's top 3, top 4. You watch that guy, he puts on an absolute clinic. First half of the game, he took DeAndre Hopkins completely out of the game. Second half, they force-fed DeAndre Hopkins as much as they could. The guys elsewhere, though, in that secondary, what gives you confidence, Michael, and Rams fans confidence going into the playoffs that they're going to be able to shut down passing attacks?
Well, definitely, like you said, Jalen Ramsey can shut down whatever team's best receiver is out there. And he's not necessarily lined up on him all the time. That depends on what the schematics are in the game. But as you saw, he was able to shut down DeAndre Hopkins. He shut down DK Metcalf against the Seahawks a few weeks before that. He shut down Mike Evans when he was on him in that Tampa Bay game. So he's able to wipe away your opponent's best receiver. And like you said, guys like Darius Williams, they need to step up. Guys like Troy Hill, who's had 2 touchdowns defensively in the last 2 weeks, he needs to step up in those cornerback positions to cut down other receivers. Now, when it comes to the postseason, it's all going to be about the matchup that you're going against. We talk about Jalen Ramsey and that Rams secondary, and I believe they're leading the league, at least among the top in the league in interceptions since 2017, so they're up there in that secondary. But this year, and this will play a factor on Thursday night against the Patriots, their rushing defense is 3rd in the NFL right now behind the Bucs and the Saints. And it's going to be a battle or a contest of something has to give as far as the New England Patriots, who come in with the 3rd best rushing offense, averaging over 150 yards per game. So that is going to be two bulls butting heads, and one of them is going to have to give on Thursday night to see what happens. So like I said, it just depends on the matchup that the Rams would face going into the playoffs. I think if they face a team like Seattle or Arizona again or Tampa Bay, they're going to be okay. The Saints provide an interesting matchup if they were to get that far. I think they could beat any team in the NFC East, no matter who they would match up. So to me, it's just about matchups. I think the NFC, as we look at maybe the cream of the crop in the Saints and the Packers, who, they've showed some amazing games, but also they've showed some games where they look beatable. So I think the NFC is a little bit more wide open than the AFC is with like the Chiefs and the Steelers and teams like that.
Who's the best team in the NFC West?
The NFC West, I would say is the Rams or Seahawks. To me, it's literally a coin toss, and that's just going to depend on consistency. The Seahawks have shown flashes where Russell Wilson plays like an MVP, where to me, that's the best team in the NFC West. Then they play a game like the Giants on Sunday, and they lay an egg. And Russell Wilson, who's had a few of these games in the last few weeks where he throws 2-3 interceptions a game, and they don't look like the best team. I happen to think, so, Bill, that the Rams match up with the Seahawks very well, and that they always play the Seahawks tough. And to me, at least this year, with Jalen Ramsey being able to take away DK Metcalf, they're a better team than the Seahawks. So if the Rams can stay consistent, to me, it's the Rams in the NFC West.
They funnel in this small little scat back Cam Akers, rookie out of Florida State. I loved his game at Florida State. What did you see yesterday, Michael Duarte, and what do you think about him being able to play this week? Because he's just been a walking injury designation so far in his rookie season.
Yeah, and that doesn't change coming up here on a short week on Thursday. Talking to Sean McVay today, Cam Akers is a little banged up with a shoulder injury. He did not participate in practice on Monday, so it'll be questionable for Thursday, but I think he's good to go. Michael Brockers with a stinger in his neck is doubtful so far for Thursday. We'll see if that gets any better this week. But, Cam Akers, he's a guy that the Rams are really high on, especially when they let Todd Gurley go in the offseason. And it took him a while to get his rhythm, as we saw. They definitely trusted him. I think opening week, he was the starting tailback in the backfield on the very first drive and the very first possession of the season. So that shows how much confidence they had in him. But he didn't find the end zone until that Tampa Bay game. And so that shows it took him a while to get his rhythm and to find out how he can kind of fit into this offense, get acclimated and adjusted to the speed at the NFL level. I think he now has the confidence scoring touchdowns in 3 weeks in a row that he can compete at this level and he can compete highly at this level. He's impressed me not just with his running abilities. He cut some big gashes against the Cardinals on Sunday, but his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. There was one play on 4th and 1. The Rams went for it late in the game when it was still a close game. I believe it was Budda Baker who broke up that screen, sniffed it out the whole way. But Jared Goff kept scrambling. Budda Baker went to Goff. Cam Akers got himself open, found space, and caught the screen pass to get the first down and more, and the Rams ended up scoring a touchdown that drive. So that shows me he's even maturing beyond his years to have that kind of presence and IQ to be able to see a play like that get broken up early, stay with it, see what Jared's doing, and get the first down. So I like him a lot. I just hope he'll be healthy on Thursday.
Michael, I'm just jonesing to ask you one quick baseball question. Winter meetings, it sounds stupid. What are the Dodgers actually going to do here in the baseball offseason, but just stay being one of the best teams in baseball? Any crazy move? Are they actually going to go and make this Lindor deal that I keep reading about?
I don't know if they make the Lindor deal per se, especially with the season that Corey Seager had in 2020. Obviously, that was a little bit of a concern with his injury a couple of years prior. But, third base is a position they need to address. I don't think necessarily see bring back Justin Turner, that is not a position that they can improve on going forward. I think there's a little bit of smoke to the Nolan Arenado thing, not so much the hot stove or a fire yet. I think there's a lot of smoke and fire around the Chris Bryant situation, depending on what the Chicago Cubs want to do. I knew they were interested in Chris Bryant last year as well. But I think going to these winter meetings that the Dodgers are going to look to improve bullpen. Ken Jansen, as we saw in the postseason, it's a gamble right now. He's not the closer he was a few seasons ago. Blake Trinan, I believe, will leave in free agency. Pedro Baez is a guy that could leave in free agency. Obviously, they went out and got Corey Neville. So that is essentially they make him a project like they did with Blake Trinan and get him back to where he was as far as an elite closer. That would help him. But I think in these winter meetings, they're going to try to find some bargains in the relief department and bolster that bullpen a little more.
You're the man, Michael Duarte. Join us. Michael J. Duarte is how you follow him on social media. If we don't get to talk to you, have a happy holidays, and we'll talk as playoff football approaches and Lakers, rest days and wins come up as well. NBC LA, Michael Duarte. Thanks for stopping on, man.
Anytime.
That's Michael Duarte. Once again, guys, Progressive Guest Hotline, Progressive making it easy to honor our veterans by donating cars to move their lives forward, especially in these times of need. Learn more about their Keys to Progress program and plans for 2020 at keys2progress.com. Back in a moment. Keep it right here at Sports Map All Night.
Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
From the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Bill Schmidt.
In this hour of Sports Map Radio, presented by Rocket Mortgage, when you want the ability to adjust your loan options in real time, Rocket can. If you missed it, 34-24, the Buffalo Bills close out the Arizona 49ers. That's what they're going to be referred to, Andrew, on this show for the rest of the season, the Arizona 49ers. Did you see, though, Andrew, this is something that I do like. The organization and the NFLPA politicked for the team to be able to like rent Airbnbs in the area and then get into like a de facto bubble and bring their family down.
That's dope.
It's
really cool by the NFL.
Right. I think it's a good decision, man. They're going to be down there for 5 weeks. You're going to be living in a hotel room and you're the only team that has to do that. Like, look at the competitive balance of the league. At some point, you got to change that. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. Keep it right here. 3 plays that pay recap is coming up straight ahead. And are the Browns real? Sure looked legit. Keep it right here. Sports Map all night. Ooh, the winter meetings are a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. We have a trade in Major League Baseball. And my favorite part about when there's really no news going on and then immediately something happens, every single person that's ever wrote about baseball tweets that they knew the deal or that they're confirming the deal. So I have 17 different confirmations. Lance Lynn is being traded from the Texas Rangers to the Chicago White Sox. As everybody wants to make sure you know, Jeff Passan was first on the story. Dane Dunning going back to the Rangers in the Lance Lynn deal. That's interesting because Lance Lynn pitched mostly for the St. Louis Cardinals, football in the mind, the St. Louis Cardinals, when Tony La Russa was a member of the St. Louis Cardinals and their manager for a long time. So Lance Lynn joins a rotation of Lucas Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, Lance Lynn, Dylan Cease, and possibly Michael Kopech if he comes back from his Tommy John surgery this season. Wow, that rotation is nice. What's not nice is stiffing your first-time head coach, not telling anybody in the organization that you're going to Lil Baby's birthday party. Well, Lil Baby, big fan of his music. Life Goes On, one of my favorite songs at this point. But Andrew, how are you feeling about your boy James Harden today, waking up in Vegas, not in Houston, going to the practice facility?
Yeah, when we talked last Friday, I was a little bit more positive. I was saying, hey, we'll see what happens on Sunday. You know, he can still show up to training camp. Everything's going to be fine. Yeah, that might have been the deluded, optimistic Rockets fan inside me speaking because, when you're in Vegas, you usually just don't get up and leave for no reason, especially when you're already skipping stuff to be in Vegas.
Yeah, no.
And that's what he continued to do.
And my favorite part of the whole thing was Steven Silas earlier today just saying, he didn't quarantine enough. And the reason why he didn't is only he knows.
Ain't wrong.
I just feel so bad for Steven Silas in this whole thing, man. He gets the chance of a lifetime, and he's the transition dude, and he's going to end up getting fired in a complete no-win situation. That's brutal, brutal stuff. What's been brutal for a long time are the Cleveland Browns. Are they actually good? Answer that next. Sports Map All Night.
Bill Schmidt.
Starting out at the 25-yard line, they go with a bigger formation with 3 tight ends. Fake it. Mayfield sets the feet. He throws the deep ball. We've got separation. Downfield by himself. People Jones, goodbye. Touchdown Browns. 75 yards on the line.
That is Ian Eagle, the great Ian Eagle on CBS Sports with the call. Donovan Peoples-Jones from 75 out. One of Baker Mayfield's 4 TDs in the first half he slung out in Music City this weekend. It was a beatdown for the Tennessee Titans, catching one by the Browns, at least that first half. Now, the Browns coasted in, they were up 38-7 at the end of the first half, right? So you immediately take your foot off the gas. Credit the Titans. Dude, that team straight up just never gives in, never gives up, doesn't know how to say when. And it's one of the reasons why I really like Mike Vrabel as a head coach. I argue this with a Titan fan friend of mine all the time. He's as done and as sold out on Mike Vrabel as you could possibly be. Yesterday, on paper, the game of the day was Browns and Titans. And at the end of the game, Titans had a chance to get an onside kick when it was a 1-score game and get themselves back into it, right? I get that part of it. Difficult aspect of a loss like that for the Titans is you lose the game, right? Frankly, it didn't hurt them that much in the win column or the playoff seeding wise. They went from the 3 seed to the 5 seed. So essentially, they're going to most likely play this Browns team again, and you're going to get this exact game in the playoffs one more time. Tennessee, I still think they're a really, really good football team. Now, whether or not they came in feeling themselves a little bit, they just knocked off the Colts, beat them up pretty good. When your best player has a bad game, most of the time you're going to lose, right? Like it's more evident in basketball, as we were just talking about James Harden in the last segment, right? Like LeBron James plays poorly, Anthony Davis plays poorly, Lakers are going to lose most games. I live here in Milwaukee, so we broadcast, and I do talk shows on the Bucks and about Giannis, and people are like, man, well, Giannis has got to get 30 in the playoffs. He's got to play better in the playoffs. And I'm like, well, guess what? If he doesn't play well, you're going to lose. Like, that's just how this works. When your best player doesn't play well, they're going to lose. It's a really novel idea. I get it. But when your best player does not play well, you're most likely going to lose that game. You'd like to have role players be able to pick you up. You'd like to have your $96 million quarterback over the next 4 years win you a game. Listen, if Derrick Henry's not Derrick Henry, Titans are not going to win a ton of games. He fumbled the ball, put it on the ground early, was not himself the rest of the day. You're going to lose most of those games. Now, Baker Mayfield had an out-of-body experience on the other side and was 25 of 33. Bigger question this week, I think, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. Did Baker Mayfield get himself his extension yesterday? Because Ryan Tannehill got his money last year with a long playoff run, ended in the AFC title game. They had a 10-point lead over the soon-to-be Super Bowl champions. That's how he got his money. Lamar Jackson got his money last year when he dominated the NFL and was the best player in the league and won an MVP. Josh Allen has made his money. Now, those are 2 quarterbacks that I just mentioned, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who were picked after Baker Mayfield in the 2018 draft. The number 1 overall pick, there's a lot that comes with that. There's a lot of expectations, even in Cleveland, yes. And it's hard for me after I watched that performance by Baker to not think he gets it. So we got to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. And I want to open that up more on the phone lines. But yesterday, Cleveland comes in, and I think the statement was more about Kevin Stefanski and the entire team they have there in Cleveland. The running attack that they had, they gave the ball to Hunt and Chubb. Chubb is still a 4.5-yard a pop guy every single time he touches the rock. You give him the rock inside the 20s. Between the 20s, there's just not many guys better. Some reason they don't like him around the goal line very much, but dude is an absolute force when you give him the ball in between the 20s. And then Nick Chubb after the game was feeling himself and feeling his team and talked about the statement that his team made yesterday.
I think people know that we are a good team now when we play well, and that's what we did today. We came out, we beat a good team, and we got to keep momentum, keep going forward.
And what about Jarvis Landry? 8 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown later. Oh, and by the way, a completed pass to Baker Mayfield for 6 yards. Landry has seen good teams in the NFL. He's also been on some bad ones. He believes his team is very good here in 2020.
I think everybody, eyebrows and such have been raised about our team, and today was a good, was good for us. It was good for us as a team. But again, like I say, there's so many things that we left out there. We left yards out there. I had a drop there on third down that takes another 3 minutes off of the clock. I get the first down right there. It takes another. So there's a couple plays in the game that obviously you can't get back, but you make those plays, and this game doesn't even get this close. So those are little things that I talk about that we got to kind of figure out how to be critical of ourselves, but also not spend too much time trying to pat ourselves on the back by beating the football team. They're a good football team over there. We just play better today.
And that's the easiest way to say it. When your team and your organization hasn't gone to the playoffs in 17 years, it's easy to do what I bet a lot of people were doing today. Doing a victory lap. Doing a Las Vegas Raiders at Arrowhead. Pumping the fist, flying the flag, fired up, juiced up. And you should be. You should be. Your team is good right now. These are the expectations that everybody had last year. You just didn't have the right guy at the helm. Calm, cool Kevin Stefanski has set up that organization for some success. And Andrew Berry doing the exact same thing in the front office. Paul DePodesta deserves a lot of credit as well, because he's a baseball guy that came in to run a football team, and he's just doing it a little bit different way than it's been done before, and then how it's kind of done around the league. The NFL and pro football is a little bit different sport than the NBA and Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball coaches, managers, that position is losing a lot of importance in the day-to-day operations. The NFL and in football, pro football, college football, anything, that guy is still the guy. He's still the one that, sets the game plan, sets the scheme, sets the way you're going to play. The front office can give you some guidelines of how they want to play, but you hire a coach because of his scheme. You hire the way that he calls plays. It's a major factor in the game. Kevin Stefanski yesterday came in and schemed up the Tennessee Titans in that first half. Going back and watching that first half, that first 15, 20 plays, that script that you usually write out, was to a T by Kevin Stefanski. Leans on the run game. Gets Jarvis Landry involved early. Utilizing other guys in the pass game like Rashad Higgins. And oh, by the way, they're 9-3, and Odell Beckham Jr. has been on the shelf for the last 5 weeks. I don't like doing that, because I really like OBJ and I like his game, but it's true. People thought that the only reason why Cleveland was going to be great last year was because they were flashy. Look at the weapons they got. Baker's going to sling it around. Now, he throws the ball a lot yesterday, but they're winning because of the way their run game is setting up everything else in the pass game. They're being aggressive. They're taking some chances on the offensive side while not being stupid in those chances. Now, Ryan Tannehill and his Tennessee Titans had plenty of opportunities to finish this thing off and get themselves into that 3 seed and kind of lock it up over the Buffalo Bills. And they had a comeback effort fall very, very much short, very flat. And Ryan Tannehill, as a leader would do, says maybe the wake-up call we needed.
Yeah, we've done some good things. Obviously, what you've done doesn't really matter. How you perform each and every Sunday, you have to go out and earn it, and earn the win. So we'll see. We'll see how this team responds. I believe in our guys. I believe in our leadership and our culture and the way we like to play. Now it's a matter of putting it to the test and
and making it happen.
Two guys in this game that both balled out, that were both draft picks in 2018, top 5 guys, both of which are sitting here, or Corey Davis, 2017, because his 5th-year option was declined. So he's sitting here waiting, saying, man, what am I going to do next year? Well, I know what he's going to do. He's going to get himself a big-time payday. 11 catches yesterday, 182 yards, and he's been balling out all year long. Tennessee's going to be fine. Now, maybe we were drinking a little bit of the Titan Kool-Aid here on the program last week. Both Andrew and I had them in our top 5. That will definitely change this week as we do top 5, bottom 5 tomorrow. But you're seeing the Tennessee Titans in a game with a team that most likely they play again. This is probably wild card weekend right now as it sits, because I'm watching Buffalo today. They're not slowing down. They came off a bye, and Josh Allen was magnificent tonight. I'm going to dive into a few more of those numbers with him and Stephon Diggs and what they did tonight. But, dude, Josh Allen is a baller. Buffalo, Pittsburgh next week on Sunday Night Football. Then it's Broncos, Patriots, and Dolphins for the Bills in the last 4. Titans, if they want to get into that 3 seed, get themselves either in Indianapolis 3rd time around, maybe a little Raiders in that first week. We're probably seeing Browns and Titans again to figure out how the Titans slow down that running attack. If Baker plays the way he did yesterday, plays within the system, and he's in that game wrecker mold, he can easily throw you out of a game. But play inside yourself, play inside the system, Browns can do some damage, dude. And I'm amazed that I'm saying it. They're a legit football team. They're good. Their defense is going to get better. And as Jarvis Landry said there, man, there's a couple of plays there in that fourth quarter they make. And this isn't a 41-35 game and an onside kick with 42 seconds to go or whatever it was for the Titans to get themselves back in and a chance to tie this thing up. No, the Browns are winning by 3 touchdowns. I mean, they were dominating this game. Browns are absolutely legit. They're going to the playoffs. It's going to feel great for Browns fans. 17-year drought about to end this season. Guys, The Athletic delivers every sports story that matters. The Athletic has full-time local writers dedicated to your teams, providing breaking news, in-depth analysis, exclusive stories that you cannot find anywhere else. Plus national names like Robert Mays, Stuart Mandel, Jake Seeley, David Aldridge, Ken Rosenthal, and Lindsey Jones provide unrivaled league-wide perspective and insight, all personalized and ad-free. Whether you're looking for a fantasy football edge, which I could have definitely used this week, or a long-term outlook for your NBA team, The Athletic has the sports coverage you need. Subscribe today for $1 a week at theathletic.com/radio week, all one word. Once again, that's theathletic.com/radio week. Keep it right here. We'll look inside the numbers of the Bills beating out the Arizona 49ers next on Sports Map Radio. Radio, Sports Map all night. I'm Bill Schmidt. I'm at Bill Schmidt Radio. He's at Carlson Radio. 3 plays that pay, a little thing that we like to do each and every week and give you a chance to make some investments on the National Football League. Just wrapped up here tonight in week number 13. Now, week 13 is not done. Tomorrow you'll have Ravens and Cowboys, and the Ravens will get the MVP Lamar Jackson back today, or tomorrow, I should say. Already today, if you're hanging out on the East Coast with us listening in Baltimore. But the Ravens are in a sticky situation on the AFC playoff side. They need to win as many games as they can. They need to almost win out. If you look at where the Ravens sit at the moment, stacked up behind the aforementioned Cleveland Browns, who right now are solidified into that 5 seed. Dolphins and Colts each at 8-4. The Ravens got to hope for a couple of losses, and they need to leapfrog over the Raiders as well. So they need to start winning games, and they need to do it quickly, as the Ravens have lost 4 of their last 5, and they're not going to be at full strength, to say the least, going into tomorrow night's game against the Dallas Cowboys. It's Dallas tomorrow night on Tuesday night, and then a Monday night game at Cleveland for the Baltimore Ravens. Then they wrap up with the Jags, Giants, and Bengals. So winnable games on the way out, but Lamar's got to figure it out there in Baltimore. And it starts by beating a bad Dallas Cowboy team tomorrow night. Tonight for the Buffalo Bills, it was all about going down into Arizona, a place that was horrible to them just a couple of weeks ago, when Kyler Murray finds DeAndre Hopkins as time expires in a Hail Mary to beat Buffalo, one of their 3 losses on the year. Otherwise, you're talking about a 10-2 team after Josh Allen goes off for 4 touches tonight. All 4 TDs to different receivers, something that makes Josh Allen, the product of Wyoming, very excited about. And his offense, it's got to tell you something.
Well, it means that we were in a groove. Coach Dable had a really good game plan going into this week. We went out there, we executed pretty well early on. It was a little faulty. Obviously, the 4th and goal situation and fumbling backed up. So we didn't get to a great start, but our guys found the rhythm. We stuck with it, and our defense played a heck of a game, too.
It was a sloppy game in the beginning, and only 7 points to show out of 4 goal line trips for the 2 teams. And he mentioned it. Zach Moss fumbles there after the Bills stuff the Niners on 4th and goal, turn it over in the next play, and then the Niners are up 7-0. But Josh Allen, as cool as the other side of the pillow, as my idol Stuart Scott would like to say, 32 of 40, 375, 4 scores, only sacked 1 time. And what I like about Josh is this season, there's a very different feeling when he's in the pocket and then when he gets out of the pocket. He's still moving, he's still running, but he's running to throw. And that is the calm factor that young quarterbacks have to get into. It's a mindset. It's something that you only learn from playing a bunch of football. And it's got to give you the confidence, if you're Josh Allen, to feel like you can pretty much do anything you want out on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it felt good. The ball was coming out the hand pretty well. But again, credit to our guys for going out there, getting open and making plays. Our 5 guys up front blocking. Our tight ends kind of being the dual threats they are. So, love it. So it was a great team win tonight.
Great decision by Brandon Beane, the front office, the GM of the Buffalo Bills, to go out and get Stephon Diggs this offseason. Make the big-time trade for Diggs. It was a huge package they had to give up. It ended up being what? A first. It was a 5th as well, a 7th rounder. The Bills acquired Diggs for with a 7th rounder for a 1st rounder, a 5th rounder, and a 6th rounder, all as well as a 4th round pick next year. So 4 picks go over to Minnesota in the deal, but they also get Diggs on like a 5-year deal, which is somewhat cost effective for where he's at. Then you grab a Cole Beasley, who was as much of a security blanket for Dak Prescott as you were going to find in the NFL. A guy that can just find himself open, get into small areas, good windows, make himself available. 9 catches for $130 and a score tonight. What is that relationship like for a third-year quarterback when you got a deep threat and a number one guy in Diggs and a security blanket for 3 years sitting there with Cole Beasley in the wide receiver room.
We work extremely hard. Those are two true professionals that go out to practice and work their tails off. They don't complain. They don't ask for the ball. They just do their job. And it's fun to play quarterback when you got guys that consistently do the right thing and get open and fight for the ball for you. So love those guys.
Now, last year, when the Steelers and Bills played on Sunday Night Football, I want to say it was almost the same week last year, Andrew. I think they played like week 14, week 15. It sounds right, feels right, because I was at the I know you and I have talked about this. I do I play games with people on the Jumbotron for the minor league hockey team here in Milwaukee, and it was our Christmas party. And the other host, the girl host that I work with, she is from Buffalo, huge Bills fan. So we're sitting here at a very nice black tie event, Christmas party for the organization with an open bar. So obviously I made a fool of myself. And the last thing I remember was Tre'Davious White scoring a pick six touchdown and the Bills win. And throughout the game, I'm thinking, they've arrived. They just beat the Steelers on prime time in Heinz Field. They do the same thing next week. Josh Allen, what do you think of Sunday Night Football in the 11-1 Steelers next week?
Definitely not. We'll enjoy this one tonight, figure it out, and watch the game plan because, again, we left some stuff out there that we wish we had back, and we'll get on to Pittsburgh and try to put together a good week and a good game plan for them. And, again, they're hot. We know that, and we got to be ready for anything.
And they're going to be coming in with some vinegar in it after losing to the Washington football team at home. However, we heard a little bit of Mike Tomlin earlier today. As calm as he can be, just owned up to it. They didn't play their best game. Bills and Steelers, a game that everybody is going to have their eye on next week. And it might be a game that pays. Not a whole lot of payments, but we'll review those picks coming up next. Andrew Carlson, Bill Schmidt hanging out with you on Sports Map all night. straight up discomforted, you got nausea, easiest way to calm all those issues, Nausine chewable tablets, non-drowsy, so you can take it at any time of the day. You're not going to fall asleep. It's also got no caffeine and antihistamines, no aspirin, anything nasty like that, and no chalky medical aftertaste. Instead, just a wild cherry flavor in a quick dissolving tablet that has Nausine's 4-minute formula, which quickly relieves stomach discomfort from overindulging. Nausine features a specially buffered formula that helps calm and control your upset stomach discomfort. Test it out today. 2 to 4 tablets whenever you're feeling the pains from stomach from overeating and digestive sections across the country. In most leading retailers, you'll find Nausine chewable tablets. Grab that 42-pack. You will thank us later here on Sports Map all night. You can thank us later for the W's that were handed out in the 3 plays that pay. Now, Andrew, I will say one of yours here is the newest budding rivalry in college football that you went in on. The Mullets versus the Mormons was what I saw on the television screen this weekend with the BYU Cougars, who I've self-proclaimed them as a covering machine against Coastal Carolina and the Chanticleers. Had to be one of the most entertaining football games you ever watched, though.
Oh, fantastic game.
Unreal.
Not for me from a betting perspective.
Same.
We can get to that in a second.
Mhm.
Yeah, fantastic game. Just absolutely incredible.
My favorite part of it, Andrew, was that because the NFL and football in general is one of those games that you have to just get pounded into your head of you got to study, you got to do enough film session, you got to know everything. And these two teams, agree that they were going to play 4 days later. They put on an incredible contest. There wasn't all that much film watched on Coastal Carolina for BYU. Same on the other side. They just went out and balled, and the two teams were pretty good. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. And frankly, the show pot also followed you in this first endeavor. So give us the rest of your college plays and how they cash out as we walk up to the register right now here on Sports Map all night.
Okay, so obviously, BYU -10 versus Coastal Carolina didn't cash, but it's a fun game. And a game like that, honestly, even when you don't cash those, when it's that entertaining, it almost makes up for the loss. Not quite, but almost. You don't feel the pain nearly as much. The other one, I had Missouri -2.5 versus Arkansas, which was also a wild game. Missouri ended up winning by 2, so the hook got me there. It was just an incredible comeback from the Tigers, but it wasn't quite enough to get the cover. They scored 27 points in the fourth quarter, Bill. I don't know if you caught that, but they scored 27 points in the fourth quarter, roared all the way back to take down Arkansas. Unfortunately, that only gave them a 2-point victory, so the 2.5 gets us. And then for the final play, I had Stanford +12 at Washington. Now, this one, I don't know if you'll remember back to last Friday. Originally, I had Cincinnati versus Tulsa here.
Yes.
Cincinnati versus Tulsa didn't play this week. They play the 12th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, I don't know how I did that. The site that I use to get a lot of the lines that I use for the 3 plays that pay.
For sure.
For whatever reason, they had Cincinnati versus Tulsa matched up in this weekend. So I thought I was
idiots.
Good to go, and then I could go plug it in later. That was not the case.
Well, hey, you see, this is what you do now. Foresight. Now you have it for this week. I like it.
Yeah, so now I get to bet Cincinnati versus Tulsa this week. So
100%.
It ends well. Stanford ended up cashing out against Washington. They won the game outright. They didn't just cover. They won the game. So my lone win of the college weekend was one that I didn't even initially plan on betting, so I'll take it.
David Shaw, is he ever going to get a shot in the NFL? Because I know that a lot of teams have kind of coveted him, and he's always been brought up. He just seems like he loves Stanford football, and he's not going to leave. Maybe it's just because Jim Harbaugh left from Stanford, but that dude winning games with the kind of player that they have to recruit, you got to imagine he's going to get a chance at some point, right?
You have to think so, but also there comes a time where like the shine sort of rubs off you so much to the point where they're not really interested anymore. I don't know if you remember back when Kevin Sumlin had his awesome first year at Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel. There was legitimate like talks that he was going to be in the works for an NFL gig, and he stayed at Texas A&M. They gave him a little pay raise, a little bump. And then all of a sudden, you never heard from Kevin Sumlin in a real capacity as a head coach basically ever again. So I don't know if the David Shaw, the window will close for him, because to me, he strikes me as a good head coach. He strikes me as someone who would be successful at the NFL level. But I wonder if he gets to the point where I understand it's hard to win at Stanford. I wonder if it gets to the point where that shine sort of rubs off to the point where the NFL teams really aren't as interested anymore.
Well, and two, I mean, and this also goes back to just, having conversations. Like, you get shot down enough times, you're not going to step up to the plate that much, right? Like, teams have probably gotten shot down from David Shaw going to the NFL so many times. Like, okay, well, he doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to leave. Then they just quit asking, right? At some point, you stop asking the person out that you keep getting shot down by, because you're like, I know how this one's going to go.
Yeah, and if you're waiting for the perfect opportunity, which I'm guessing he probably is, it would probably take the perfect job in the NFL to get him to leave Stanford. Well, a lot of the time, perfect jobs aren't really available in the NFL. So I'm guessing he probably stays with the Cardinal out there on the West Coast.
I got asked that question earlier today. What job in the NFL is the best one? And immediately the person I'm talking to goes, well, it's got to be the Houston Texans, right? It's like, okay, well, you have Deshaun Watson and
Laramie Tunsil,
a couple of third-round picks. And I know you really love Tunsil. He's a good player, really nice player. I'm just not as big on him. I love Laramie Tunsil after the draft night thing, because that guy got absolutely screwed, and he deserves everything that came to him. Laramie Tunsil, stay in school, kids. Look at what that man did for himself. Self-entrepreneurship. Do your math, do your homework, and you can yourself go negotiate yourself the biggest contract in NFL history at the offensive tackle position for a while. That was impressive. That's what I love about Laramie Tunsil. Good player, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it's Laramie Tunsil, it's Deshaun Watson, and
that's legitimately
it. That's it. So I thought it was Atlanta, but there's so many different assets you can do there. But you don't want to go to Detroit. We'll get into that conversation a little bit later on in the week as well. All right, I'll go to the college game. What I had was disgusting. Oklahoma State and TCU. They sat at 51 for 6 minutes. Andrew, there were 3 different plays inside the 5-yard line. There was a 2-point conversion that was failed to just put it over easily, the 51.5 that we had it sat at. Then there was a ball thrown into the end zone for a touchdown, bobbled and dropped. Then the final play of the game, a Hail Mary, as it's 29-22. Oklahoma State lofts the ball into the end zone. It gets battered around and ultimately caught at the 1-yard line. And the over does not hit because we got hooked. 51.5. That was the most frustrating thing that I've ever seen. Then Notre Dame and Syracuse. I was rolling it. I felt Ian Book was just going to ball out in his final home game at Notre Dame. They let Syracuse hang around too long. Could not cover the 33.5. That was a stupid idea for me, so I'll admit that one as well. And then Clemson giving the 22. That one I felt really, really good about. Showpot rolled through with the Tigers in the nightcap against the Virginia Tech Hokies. A little bit hairy there in the beginning, but Clemson's just so good, dude. So good. We're going to have to do some CFP rankings throughout the week as well and give you what our top 4 looks like, because I don't know if it looks any different than what the committee had of Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State. All 4 of those teams were spectacular this weekend. Alabama put up 45 points in the first half. That was straight up disrespectful, the way that they were playing the reigning, defending, not really defending at all, LSU Tiger national champions in college football. In the NFL game, it starts out with a win, Andrew, against your favorite team.
Look, there's only one way it can go.
Yeah.
And that's the way the whole Houston Texans.
That was wild, dude.
Every time they've played a team with a winning record, they've lost. And that trend continued. The Colts were -3 at home, or not at home, visiting the Houston Texans. And I understand some luck was involved in this one because Nick Martin, one of the highest paid centers in the league, not rightfully so, but still one of the highest paid centers in the league, decided to snap the ball at Deshaun Watson's ankles about a yard to his left. And because of that, the Colts were able to win by 6. But even taking that into account, look, giving this Texans team only if you're asking anybody playing this Texans team that is a legitimately good team and you're not giving them at least a touchdown, I don't know what you're doing. But look, I'll take the free money. The Colts covered pretty easily. Up next, I had the Saints -3 at the Falcons. And look, this is another one where I thought the home field should not make that much of a difference. The Saints are just significantly better team all around than the Falcons. I understand it's a rivalry game. I understand it's in division, and that can do some weird things. But no matter who's at quarterback for the Saints, they're covering this -3 against the Falcons, wherever this game is played. There aren't fans in the building. There aren't fans in Atlanta. There aren't fans in New Orleans. So it's basically a neutral site game. And on a neutral site game, you're telling me the Saints, even with Taysom Hill at quarterback, are only a -3? Give me the Saints all day. That's what happens. And the last one, I had a little too much faith in Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, and it came back to bite me. I thought they could cover the +2.5 versus the Rams, and that just wasn't the case. I think his shoulder might be a little bit more banged up than we were initially led to believe. I'm guessing, unless I get a disgustingly nice line, I'm probably going to be avoiding the Cardinals from here on out this year.
So Grandpa Brent and the Raiders, I should have just followed my guy, Brent Musburger. I think he was rolling with the Raiders on the money line yesterday, listening to him call that final touchdown to Henry Ruggs, or he had a TD prop on him. Andrew, I was listening to the call yesterday. Did I tell you my man gave Henry Ruggs the player of the game because he just loved the way that he fought after the fumble, after the drop. He comes back and makes the final play, and the color commentator just looks at him and goes, yeah, Waller played pretty well too. Darren Waller has 13 catches, goes off for 202 touchdowns, and it goes by the wayside because the Raiders just didn't play any defense yesterday. They were given 8 to the Jets on the road, and I get it. You're on the road. You're crossing the country. But, man, my boy Raider Cody, I could only imagine what his postgame call sounded like yesterday because Raider fans had to just be livid listening to some of that and watching that game yesterday. Raiders end up winning the game in miraculous fashion, and it cost Greg Williams his job, rightfully so, but it cost us a lot of money sitting there with the Raiders dropping 8 on the road. The Chiefs and Broncos was as disrespectful and disappointing of a game as possible. Not only did your boy lose his fantasy game, and now I have to take 4 shots out of a straw due to the fact that Tyreek Hill could not catch one of those 2 touchdowns from 45 plus away. One of them he actually caught and just didn't tell Andy Reid he caught it, so they didn't challenge it until Andy Reid saw it and the punt was already gone. The next one gets brought back because, dude, if you're the left guard, just let the guy go. Pat Mahomes is going to be able to get rid of the football. Just let him go. Don't get that little extra tug. You knew that was going to get you caught. That is offensive line 101. Don't grab above the shoulder pad. You grab underneath the shoulder pad. That's the way you get the tug, and they don't even notice it. Anyway, Chiefs and Broncos over 51 was a pipe dream when you looked at the way that those teams played yesterday. And Broncos cashed a lot of people a lot of money getting the 13.5 yesterday. And the only win that I was able to get on the NFL side, your boy went 2-4 this week after a 5-1 performance 1 week ago. Buffalo Bills all over the 49ers. I thought the wrong team was favored. Bills started the week favored. Then it rolled over to the Niners. We got it at +1 earlier today, caught it at 1.5. Either way, just sprinkle it down on the money line, and the Bills cashed in a lot for the boys today and at least bailed us out on the NFL side. So 2-4 for myself. My man AC, the walking ATM inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, goes 3-3. And we'll do it again coming up this Friday with the 3 plays that pay. 3 minutes away from us wrapping things up right here on Sports Map Radio. It's Sports Map all night.
Schmidt.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Sports Map Radio. Appreciate you being here. Before we get out of here, a little story that's always fun. Patrick Mahomes is a bit of an owner with the Kansas City Royals, right? He joined the ownership group in Kansas City. Now his fiancee, Brittany, and soon to be mother of his child, is getting into the ownership group of a new Kansas City venture in the National Women's Soccer League. I like that. I like that kind of co-branding. Go and get yourself some money. Brittany was also a former college and pro soccer player overseas, so she knows a little bit about the business. Look at Pat Mahomes, Andrew, and his fiancee, soon-to-be wife, Brittany, and mother of his child, getting into the ownership groups. That's what you got to do. Reinvest some of that $500,000, Patrick.
I'm just thinking how athletic that kid's going to be, man. You got Pat Mahomes and a former professional soccer player.
Yeah, he's not going to suck. Yeah, he's not going to suck. And his grandpa played in the MLB. Yeah, no, he's not going to be bad. Watch the kid just be like the best debater of all time. What do you do? I'm on the debate team. I'll be hanging out with you and I on one of these microphones in 25 years. Let's hope for bigger and better things for the soon-to-be young Mahomes child. What a night in the NFL. 2 games on Monday Night Football. Once again, I'm just throwing it out there. If we do this again, 7 o'clock Eastern start for the first game, 9 o'clock Eastern start for the last game. I'm just saying, regular doubleheader. Thanks to Michael Duarte and Zach Rosenblatt for joining us. Andrew Carlson and I will do it again tomorrow. I'm Bill Schmid. Pharrell on the bench is next. This is Sports Map Radio. Good night.